Hey, everybody. First off, thank you so much for joining today. I'm very excited to dive into what it takes to successfully craft a conference proposal. This is a topic that impacts me as both an event organizer and as a speaker. Through Craft Beer Professionals, we are always looking for speakers to offer educational talks to our community for both our weekly sessions and our spring and virtual conferences, and now our in-person workshops. I have many people in our industry, and even some not directly involved with craft beer, that reach out to me daily about potential opportunities. It is always my goal to get to know each person and find the best way that they can provide value to CBP. Now, wearing my speaker hat, I'm constantly trying to share my insight and experiences with others to help them become even more successful. I remember the first time I submitted a proposal to speak at an industry event. I knew what I wanted to do, but I did not look at the process from all the angles. And in doing so, I failed to do the necessary background research, rushed through my bio and description, and simply assumed that there was a need for my talk. What I didn't do was successfully demonstrate that. I unfortunately received an email letting me know that my submission was not accepted. Since then, I have refined my own submission process and have been honored to speak at so many industry events alongside other speakers with vast sets of knowledge. Today, we're going to dive into how successfully approaching the process of crafting conference proposals into how you can maximize your chance of getting accepted. But first, why does this even matter? You have a vision of what you'd like to share, and you have a belief that it's important. So why does understanding how to successfully craft a strong conference proposal matter? One reason: it impacts you. The difference between a strong proposal and receiving undesirable results is you receiving more acceptance letters to speak at industry events. You having the opportunity to speak on those in-person and virtual stages, increasing the visibility for both you and your brand, you gaining more exposure and recognition as a thought leader. And all of these may ultimately lead to more business for you, whether you work for or own a brewery, or if you're an industry partner offering some sort of solution. When I submitted that first conference proposal, I didn't look at all the check boxes I needed to hit to maximize my potential for success. Today, we're going to go over how you can do that. But first, who is Brian Fellows? Now, if you watched Saturday Night Live during the late 90s like I did, you probably recognize this character portrayed by Tracy Morgan. Let's take a quick watch.
He loves animals and they love him back. Interspecies friends, we ain't kidding, Mac. Brian Fellows, Safari Planet. Brian Fellows, Safari Planet.
Brian Fellow is not an accredited zoologist, nor does he hold an advanced degree in any of the environmental sciences. He is simply an enthusiastic young man with a 6th grade education and an abiding love for all God's creatures. Share his love tonight on
Brian Fellows, Brian Fellows, Brian Fellows, Safari Planet.
Good evening, and welcome to Brian Fellows Safari Planet. I'm Brian Fellows.
Let's get to this next slide. Enough of Brian Fellows. So, who are you? Are you a Brian Fellows? Conference organizers receive a ton of submissions, and many are on similar topics. So what's going to give you the edge over others vying to speak? Let's say you're an organizer planning a conference on chimpanzees. Who would you want to speak at your event? Let's look at option number 1. Brian Fellows. Brian, as we learned, is not an accredited zoologist, doesn't hold an advanced degree in any of the environmental sciences, but however, is an enthusiastic young man with a 6th grade education and an abiding love for all of God's creatures. Are you Brian Fellows? What are your credentials? If you were the event organizer, would your bio stand out? Now, let's look at option 2. Jane Goodall. Perhaps you've heard of her. Look at all her credentials. I don't need to read them. In just a few words, you already know that she's a subject matter expert. While it's doubtful you've spent 60 years in our industry, you should use your bio to prove to the conference organizer that you are not only qualified to speak, but you are the right person to speak on the topic. That's extremely important. I and other conference organizers often receive hundreds of submissions. And frankly, you only have a very brief moment to separate yourself from the rest of the pack. 50-word bio going to stand out? In less than 150 words, you need to be capable who you are, what your business is, and why this matters. This will touch on your background, your experience, and in doing so, assert yourself as a subject matter expert, directly tying into the description, which we'll get to, of your session. Event organizers, they're going to use this information in promotion for the event. While I probably would jump at the opportunity to see Brian Fellows live, an audience of zoologists looking to learn more about chimpanzees will be more excited to be in the presence of the legendary Jane Goodall, who will not only deliver a stronger presentation, but also help attract more attendees to the event. As someone passionate about the success of the craft beer industry, you should be dedicating time daily to boost your credentials. Even if you're new to the industry, something as basic as reaching out to those who may be interested in your focus and asking what their pain points are could be a start. Putting out free educational content in any form could help position you as someone looking to help. This helps build your trust, and you will begin to accumulate a positive reputation and will be recognized by more and more people in our space. When we all start, we're nobodies. We're nobodies with the potential to grow and be successful, however you define that success. We're in the relationship business, and investing in not just growing your brand, but providing sincere value to others will have a long-term impact, and not only your future conference proposals being accepted, but also how others perceive you as a thought leader in craft beer. Now, as I mentioned, you have no more typically than 150 words to summarize your life in relation to this talk. We're going to get to that. Your bio needs to clearly state who you are, why you matter, and what makes you the right person for the job. Be very mindful that your bio relates to the talk. If you're a brewery consultant with knowledge and experience on everything from the brewing to business side of the industry, don't stack your bio and all your brewing qualifications if you're giving a talk on accounting principles. While showing why you matter is important, it is more vital to show you're relevant to the specific event and the audience you're speaking to. You also have a brief opportunity to brag here. If you have any unique credentials, qualifications, or little tidbits of information that make you stand out, include it here. In many situations, event organizers are faced with two equally qualified candidates who wish to present on the same topic. If you were one of these potential speakers, what would put your bio over the top? In many situations, I like to see a speaker get a little personal. Something like, in addition to being an expert on XYZ, in her free time, she likes to escape to the mountains, build a fire, and spend time with her two dogs, Jack and Hops. It's that little humanizing touch that can help you build a deeper connection with the speaker and the potential audience. Your bio must set you apart. We'll get to how the rest of your proposal can help you with this, but it's necessary to treat each part of the proposal process with the same level of quality. Don't just rush through your bio or copy and paste from your last submission. While there is no set recipe for your bio, all the information is vital, and it is one of the ways you can stand out in the selection process. So now you're taking steps to positively build your reputation, but who are you looking to please? You're not just trying to appeal to the potential audience who may watch you live. You need to know what the event organizer is looking for. The event organizer and selection committee, if applicable, should be at the top of your list for who to understand. They have the first right of refusal to send you that email that tells you to try again next year. It is your responsibility to understand the goal of the event you're interested in speaking at. Do your research. Look at the event's messaging. Who does it speak to? Take a look at last year's schedule. What does the content look like? What types of presenters were given the opportunity to speak? If you're interested in speaking at a technical brewing workshop, does your proposed topic matter match the audience? A pitch on maximizing taproom experience probably won't be a high priority to event organizers putting together a workshop for head brewers. If you're submitting to an event that puts out a call for proposals specifically on a list of defined topics, does your submission hit the criteria? Once again, just because you think your topic is relevant, and it may be, doesn't mean it's relevant to the audience at hand. Know who attends and craft a proposal that speaks to their needs. And to do so, Putting together a proposal that piques the interest of the event organizers is your first step to getting accepted. If you are able to get their attention, you may have a grasp on their needs and goals. However, in the world of craft beer education and events, many conferences have attendees that span the spectrum of all roles in our industry, from those in brewing to those in business. You not only need to understand the general goals of the event, but also the need to refine who in particular you envision as your audience and speak to them through your bio, your title, your description, and from stage. Now, let's take a deeper look at your potential audience. It is your job to not just understand who they are, but what their needs are in particular. There are two key components to this: role and hierarchy. While it's important to know the role of the attendees, it's also important to know their organizational hierarchy. The role represents the category within our industry they interact. Are we talking brewers, taproom staff, accountants, human resources, marketing, you name it. Now, let's fine tune it. Within the scope of their work, what's their position? This spans from someone just starting in the industry with minimal knowledge or experience to decision makers with years of high level experience. What does your potential audience look like? What do they already know? What do they need to know? And my favorite, what can you share with them that they didn't know they need to know? I want to repeat that one. What can you share with them that they didn't know they need to know? That is your unique value. If you're speaking to a room full of future brewery owners, a basic talk on things to consider when opening a tap room may be valuable, and it may be safe to keep your content at a beginner level. However, if you're speaking to a room of CEOs and owners, the odds are they have a solid grasp on running a business. What they are looking for is higher level strategies to take their business to the next level. This is how you become not just an educator, which is still extremely valuable, but a thought leader who builds a reputation for providing unique insight and value. Once again, do your research and know the level in their organization of attendees and the content type they are desiring and speak to them. Every aspect of your proposal should speak to this. One of the most common mistakes I witness in presentations is presentation titles and descriptions taking an overly promotional approach. A promotional title can be the prime reason an organizer places your session in the try again next year pile, or a potential attendee chooses another talk over yours. This comes back to your goals. Unless you're a sponsor of an event or have specifically been invited to talk on the inherent value of your company, educating your audience should be your goal. And guess what? Customer education is marketing. Building a relationship with your audience that sees you as a teacher helps you build your reputation as an expert on the subject matter. And making the choice to take an educational approach begins with your title on that initial conference submission form. Let's take a look at a few potential titles and how they come across. How ABC yeast makes the best lager. I probably could have got a little more creative with the fake companies I put in, but anyways, sure, as the owner of ABC Yeast, you may truly believe that one of your specific yeast strains is going to consistently put out the highest quality product. But what conference organizer really wants to read a proposal that sounds more like a marketing material? Begin by building trust and showing your desire to contribute value to the event, not by pitching your product. Please don't submit a title like this. Let's look at a few titles that scrap the promotion and in just a few words provide expectations. This slide goes back to knowing your audience and creating a title and content that will attract and resonate with them. If you're speaking to an audience of beginner brewers, a session titled Lager Yeast 101 may be a strong route for you. The short and sweet title lets anyone interested in tuning in know that you'll be talking about lager yeast on a basic level, right? You not only demonstrate an understanding to the event organizer that you know their audience includes brewers, but specifically shows that you've done your research and believe that content at this level and topic would be valuable. The second potential title, 5 Strategies to Successfully Brew Consistent Lagers, targets a slightly more experienced audience of brewers, accepting that they already have a basic knowledge of brewing lagers and offers them advice to take their lager brewing game to the next level. It also defines that you plan to provide 5 specific tactics that they can walk away knowing. Finally, Yeast management and loggers announces immediately that you'll be in for specific, more technical talk on yeast management and loggers. If this is a pain point or topic of interest for the organizer and audience, they'll be ready to move past your title and read deeper into your session description. If you're playing along at home, now's the time to take a sip of your beer. If you're having something, coffee, water, whatever's keeping you happy this fine afternoon. This is a nice non-alcoholic beer to get me to 5 o'clock. Now, as demonstrated in the prior examples, your title is your first and potentially only shot to capture the attention of your desired audience. If the title catches the organizer and audience's eye, they'll want to learn more about what you plan to speak on and who you are. One of my favorite session titles we've used in Craft Beer Professionals is Finance for Non-Financial People. That's Finance for Non-Financial People. It's short, sweet, tells you it'll be about finance, and targets people who may not typically understand finance, but need to be proficient in it. It was extremely well received and lived up to those expectations. I recommend keeping your session title less than 10 words. In these mere 10 words, you should be able to tell your audience what you plan to talk about, why it's important, and who should be in the audience. Additionally, it needs to stand out. In achieving this goal, you have the ability to get a little creative. How about these two session titles? The first, community relationships. Okay. Number 2, be a good neighbor, knowing and growing with your community. The second demonstrates just a little bit more creativity and allows you to stand out from the straightforward title. Let's look at another example. Would you rather attend a talk titled Legal Issues in Craft Beer or Top 10 Do's and Don'ts for Buying or Selling a Brewery? The first may be appropriate if the event desires a speaker on very general issues impacting our industry on a basic level, but the second example helps you understand the material that will be covered, will attract individuals curious about buying or selling a brewery, and gets you to the next step of the conference proposal process, the description. But first, what are your goals? Once you perfect your bio and understand your potential audience, begin to think about your goals. These goals have already helped you shape your title and will greatly help you keep your session description organized and meaningful. Grab a notepad and start to jot down the key points you plan to speak on and what you want. Think of this as a mini brainstorm session between creating a title and crafting a strong description. It may take the form of a rough outline, which can help you put together the entire talk. Writing down what you hope to achieve should not be things like gain more clients, talk about my business, but rather bullet points that will help you gain more trust and build relationships with the organizer and the audience. Your goals are essentially learning objectives. Some events will only ask you to create a session description, while others will also have you get more granular and list specific learning objectives that the audience can expect to cover. Learning objectives are what knowledge and skills you hope your audience will leave with. In creating these goals and objectives, you don't want to overwhelm your audience. The title that I mentioned, 5 strategies to successfully brew consistent lagers, or 10 do's and don'ts for buying and selling a brewery, they align with your goals. You hope your potential audience gains those 5 or 10 tidbits of knowledge from spending an hour with you. When writing down these goals, keep them in the chronological order that would be expected in your talk. This helps assure the organizer and audience can follow your proposal and presentation. While it is necessary to have goals and a game plan, it is equally as important to not overdo it. Often, but depending on your content and desires of your audience, they want to leave with strategies they can apply to their business and life. Actionable strategies. It's probably not feasible to give someone 25 learning objectives. Narrow it down to the handful of objectives you hope the attendee will have a grasp on and blow their mind. After you've created a simple list, ask someone you know, either someone on your team, a friend, a potential attendee or two, if it makes sense. Once you have these goals as a list, transform them into sentences that excite the organizer and ultimately your future audience. This leads to the value of a strong description. The odds are you aren't going to hook someone on just your 10 words title. More power to you if you can, but a little extra info isn't going to hurt your audience and the event organizer. Your title needs to get the organizer and audience to the description. This is where you have the ability to win them over, get selected, and attract the crowd. You have approximately 200 to 250 words to summarize your talk. This is potentially a little over 10 sentences. Despite this, I and other event organizers have received conference proposals where the person submitting simply provides a couple sentences. Just a couple sentences. If you were in their shoes, would you be looking for a proposal that pretty much reiterates the title, in a few extra sentences, or someone who takes the time to organize their goals and clearly lay out what can be expected? Organizers provide suggested word counts for a reason. Your goal is to be succinct, but don't come across way too simple. From the last slide, you've already lined up what you hope to accomplish and want your audience to take away. Shape it into these sentences that get the organizer and potential audience excited. Like a customer leaving a tap room, they're going to leave with some sort of elevator pitch for the brewery they just visited. What do you want your audience saying about you? Have that on your mind starting right now. And know the answer to this before you even take the stage, and even before you hit submit on the proposal form. In this description, let them know the outcome and what you expect them to learn or take away. This description is creating expectations. Once again, be clear. Provide not a sense of urgency, but a sense of need to why and how you plan to offer value at the event, and when the time comes, deliver. We've all heard the saying about judging a restaurant by how clean their bathroom is. The way you portray yourself through your conference proposal is a reflection of you as a whole. If you submit late, the organizer may have concern that you may not show up day of on time. If your description contains grammatical errors and is lacking complete sentences, the organizer may have concern about your ability to professionally present on stage. Take the time to dummy check yourself for these little things. Conference organizers are busy, and so are you. When you submit a proposal, provide all the information required from the get-go. One of my personal pet peeves is when someone submits their proposal, instead of submitting the most up-to-date headshot, simply leaves a little note saying that I should already have it on file. While I may have it somewhere on my computer, it makes it a lot easier when all the necessary information is in one place. P.S. Have a professional, high-quality image that can be used in potential marketing materials. It makes you look better. The easier you make the person in charge life, the more likely you are to be accepted. Before you submit your proposal, reread it again, edit it, read it again, share it with your peers, and make sure you are properly expressing your mission and touching on the needs of the potential audience. You want to someday be proud of the talk you give, so be proud and confident in the proposal you submit. Now let's watch a quick little video.
I love craft beers. Anyone else craft beer fans? Love them. I like drinking them at home, though. That's the thing. I don't like drinking them at the brewery because they never just give you the beer and leave you alone. They always feel the need to tell you the whole story of the brewery. And you're like, oh, I didn't mean to give you the idea that I cared. So sorry. I don't care how you got the loan for this place. Just here to have a beer, you know? And they always make me feel dumb, like I never taste what I'm supposed to taste in the beer. They're like, do you taste the pine needles in there? No, I guess my tongue is stupid. I don't taste any of that. Do you taste a hint of maple syrup? Do you taste a hint of maple syrup? You know what happened? The brewer was making pancakes that morning, and a little bit of the syrup on his fingers. Some of it dabbled into the batch. Some people taste a hint of maple syrup. Do you taste a hint of maple syrup? Hard no. I don't taste any of that. I just drink this because it tastes better than Bud Light and gets me drunk faster. That's all we're doing here.
All jokes aside, it takes work to successfully create content that is valued by your audience. It's a threefold approach to creating a conference session that leaves your guests craving more, with the three pillars being educational, entertaining, and engaging. As early as 1954, the great Walt Disney used the term edutainment. Think Sesame Street. This is where you experience education through entertainment. The cross section between education and engaging is what you experience at a workshop, when the speaker is actively including the audience. This is often referred to as active learning. When you combine the ability to be entertaining and engaging, you hit on what many refer to as the creatively named engaging entertainment, like a magic show. Different speakers can give the exact same talk with different results. It's all about their ability to not only educate, but find unique ways to connect with the audience. When you successfully hit at the intersection of all three circles, you're creating an unforgettable talk that provides maximum value. This talk is akin to a taproom visit where not just the beer is delicious, but the atmosphere is extremely impressive and the staff blow your mind. This is how you take your initial conference proposal and turn it into a recipe to continually get accepted to speak at other events, get invited to speak at others, and truly build yourself as an in-demand voice for both organizers and attendees. Thank you for joining us, and I look forward to seeing your proposals. Are there any questions today? Feel free to mute yourself, put them in the comments. I'd love to take them. Feel free to reach out afterwards as well. My email address is on the screen. And if you're interested in presenting at our spring and fall virtual conferences, please submit your extremely well done proposals at speak.craftbeerprofessionals.org. But if anybody has any questions, feel free to unmute, drop them in the chat.